Section 3. How the West was converted. But how do we disciple the nations rather than just making individual disciples from among the nations? This is a reasonable question. One popular answer to this question is this: we must all go and live in the cities, at the crossroads of civilization, where we can have the most effect. At first, this may seem very plausible. It does not seem like a bad answer. Indeed, it seems very reasonable. Many think this really is what Christians should do: move into the inner city en masse. But here is the interesting thing about this answer. It is almost exactly the opposite of how Europe was actually converted to Christianity. The unpalatable truth is that it was the monasteries and the monks that converted Europe to the Christian faith, and they did the opposite of this. They went off into the wilderness, not into the cities. They withdrew. Now, I am not advocating that we should necessarily do the same, but I am not advocating that we should all move into the cities either. I think both these answers miss the point. And what made the difference for the monasteries was not that they went into the wilderness, though often once they had gone into the wilderness, communities started developing around them, i.e., they attracted others to them. Nor am I advocating that we set up monasteries. There were serious problems with the monasteries. They did accomplish much, and it was not all bad by any means, but there were serious problems that we must not imitate. They were first communistic, and communism is not a biblical ideal. In fact, communism contradicts the Bible ideal of what a Christian social order should be, e.g., the inviolability of private property, including property in land, the importance of inheritance, etc. Second, they were celibate, at least from the High Middle Ages onwards, and celibacy is not a biblical ideal. In fact, it is contrary to the biblical ideal of family life. I am not saying, of course, that it is wrong for someone to be single as such. Celibacy, however, is the ideology of singleness, i.e., the idea that celibacy is a higher spiritual condition and therefore required of those with a vocation in Christian community or ministry. This idea flies flat in the face of biblical teaching. Third, they made a new rule for themselves to function as the basis of their social order. There was the rule of St. Augustine, the rule of St. Benedict, the rule of St. Francis of Assisi, etc. These rules replaced the biblical rule that God had given us in the Bible to function as the basis of a Christian social order, namely the covenant. Our rule for life is the covenant. The Bible is the rule for the life of the individual and for the life of the society of which he is a member. Fourth, the methods they sometimes used in the conversion of Europe were not biblical and not good. For example, the conversion of the king or tribal leader and then the conversion of the population to the Christian faith by force. This is a complex subject, however, and it is not the only way that conversion happened. And even where it may appear to be so, there were often other factors at work that need to be considered and that mitigate the idea that the baptism of a whole tribe on the conversion of the tribal leader was necessarily wrong. All these things created immense problems for the monasteries themselves and for the pursuit of the kingdom of God and the Great Commission, notwithstanding the good they did, and we must not imitate them in this. But this does not mean that the monasteries and monks did no good, nor does it mean there are not things that we can learn from them. There are. Most importantly, they believe that Christianity should manifest as an alternative social order to the world, a social order that is incompatible with the social orders of men, and that is based on a completely different set of values to the values of the world. This is what they got right in principle, and so powerful was this idea that despite all the problems and compromises, which were many and serious, yet they still transformed Europe. Europe was converted by the monasteries and the monks. Now, I am not proposing that we go back to setting up monasteries, but I am saying that we need to take seriously the idea that the Christian faith must manifest as an alternative social order to the social order of the world.